Saba Douglas-Hamilton has spent her life getting closer to wild animals than most of us would ever dare. Not just up close to them in the wildest places on Earth, but closer to understanding the individual characters of some of the world's most amazing creatures.
I think through the kind of films that I make about individual animals, you actually open up their world and you show that they also have a character and they also feel emotions that you can empathise with.
Throughout her career as a wildlife presenter, she has helped us share in the lives of some amazing wildlife characters. We caught up with Saba at home in Kenya to hear some of her most memorable encounters that have brought us closer to wild animals than we ever dreamt possible.
You really start seeing them in a completely different light and caring about, an animal or a species that is thousands of miles away from you. It does bring it right into your sitting room and right into your heart. The kind of stuff that I really love to do is just actually being able to go and watch animals in their own environment with absolutely no interference in their lives. To be able to just have that time to go and sit out there and watch these animals, how lucky can you get? It really is a dream come true. Every time I spend time with one particular animal, I just do fall totally in love with it. And it doesn't really matter whether it's camels or tigers or polar bears or elephants. Because you can read anything you want about an animal, but you don't actually really know about it until you've spent time with it and watched it. And the one animal I think that I know better than any other is Bella, the leopard in Big Cat Diary. I've just had word that Bella has just been spotted down by the Talek River, and I'm heading over into her territory right now. I think what's been really special about Big Cat Week is that we have got to know particular cats as individuals, and we spend huge amounts of time with them and really getting to know the ins and outs of their lives. And especially with the leopards, with our leopard Bella, she is such an elusive animal and we see her so rarely that every single time you come across her, it's almost like you put a little pin into a map and you say, right, well that's a favourite ambush point and that's a tree that she likes to lie in. And slowly over the years you start building up this picture of how she uses the land about her and what she is like as a personality, as a character. And that's something that you don't really get to do very often in life. Have that kind of intimacy with an animal. The nicest thing about the river is that it's wonderful for filming because it gives us access in a way that is most unusual in a leopard area, because you can always see her. And so when Bella was rearing her cubs, we were always able to see the den sites and able to watch the cubs playing in these very private, secretive moments of a leopard's life. The cubs are still completely dependent on their mum. She's their teacher, their playmate, and their sole provider. They'll suckle for another 3 months, but they're already being weaned. So from now on, Bella will have to keep herself and her family supplied with meat. I think the key to Bella's character is that she's an old girl, but with that age comes wisdom and expertise. And she is just, the most phenomenal wildebeest hunter. I've never seen anything like it in any other cat. And when you're watching her hunt, you literally get into her brain and you start thinking, right, okay, that's the gully she's going to go up, that's a good piece of cover, that's how she's going to go into that bit. And it's almost like you can predict where it is that she's going to go. She's done it. She's managed to take down a yearling calf. This time the wildebeest just keep on coming. And for Bella, it's too good an opportunity to miss. What a phenomenal hunter. What you don't see in the film is that she'd actually already killed another one. And so within a period of about 15 minutes, she killed 3 wildebeest calves. She just went into this killing frenzy. I've lived here in Africa all of my life, but the closest I've ever got to sort of sheer undiluted Africa was when I was doing Going Ape in the Thai forest in West Africa. And basically went to go and try and see what it would be like to really get under the skin of a chimpanzee and go into the forest with absolutely nothing but the clothes that we had on our back and a hammock and see if we could survive by following a group of chimpanzees.
Oh, there's one here. Look at this. That was in your hair.
What's that, a spider?
I reckon that's about 30 calories.
Alistair has filmed chimps before in the Thai forest, and he's a real pro. I mean, he's, you know, one of the best in the Natural History Unit. But for me, it was a real first proper introduction to chimpanzee culture. And it was this completely mad idea, and probably the toughest thing I've ever done physically. But I absolutely loved it. I must say my whole idea about food, what was edible, changed completely after the Thai forest. You know, I realised how very fussy we are about the kind of stuff that we eat. They're actually beginning to make me feel a bit sick, these fruit. Now. My favourite of all was termites. And they were just nice and neat and clean and tasty, and you could grab a handful of them and they were great food. They sort of taste a little bit kind of oily, fatty, perfectly pleasant really. But one thing that I won't ever try again was driver ants, which are like, you know, in East Africa we call them safari ants, these very small black ants with huge powerful pincers. And the chimps are quite wary of them as well. They get the long tool and they fish into the ant's nest and allow all the driver ants to latch onto their stick, and then they very delicately sort of pull them through their lips and keep their lips out of the way and just munch the ants as they go through.
Just stick it in on the end, like this. They come on because they're really angry, and then what the chimps will do is... Okay.
Oh my God, look at that.
Ow. Well,
Like
they need to like... Oh, ow. Excuse me.
It was agony, and they drew blood. And I thought, my God, you are a stupid girl sometimes. I'm not going to do that ever again. The chimps actually led us directly back to the research camp. And it was almost like after the 5 days of us following them around, they just said, you know, come on guys, give us a break, just leave us alone. That's where you belong, now we're going back to the forest. I was born here in the Great Rift Valley in Kenya, and this is the one place that I know better than anywhere else on earth. There is something very ancient about this place that's lodged deep inside my core. I was lucky enough to have a father and mother who were actually studying elephants in Tanzania, and so I spent the first part of my life growing up in Manyara National Park. My very first impressions of animals were, you know, amongst the biggest and the most beautiful of them all. My father, of course, was interested in actually following them around and studying them. He could read them. He understood them intimately. And that was something that I picked up on as a child, that sort of empathy and the ability to really interpret what an animal was trying to say through its body language. And so I've always felt very strongly all my life that, you know, of course animals have emotions. Isn't that just self-evident? It had a huge impact on how I saw animals. That you don't look at them as a herd or as a group, but you do start to see how each of them is different and how one might be grumpy, another might be very friendly or inquisitive. Almost as like they become friends. Elephants are wonderfully social animals that live in family herds made up entirely of related females and all of their young. But there's one female in particular who's the most important in the group, and that's the matriarch. She's often the wisest, certainly the oldest of the elephants in the group. She's the reservoir of all the knowledge, and she's the one elephant to whom all the others turn in times of crisis. We had this one incident in Samburu where the matriarch had died. It's like burning a library when the older generation go. Suddenly all of the knowledge and the expertise of how to deal with difficult situations or where to find food or water in times of drought was just gone. And you were left with these young elephants who just lacked the experience that the matriarch had had. When you get to know elephants as individuals, you're completely drawn into their lives and you feel desperate sometimes about what's happened to them. So when things start to go wrong, it can actually be quite painful to witness. And we had this incident where the river had come up in flood. The whole herd crossed and a female was left alone without the rest of her family around her with this small baby. This is exactly the kind of situation where a matriarch's wisdom would really come in useful. But she was faced with a real dilemma. She had to get across, and her inexperience showed. It just seemed foolish to be attempting this. When you see something like a mother elephant trying to cross a river with a young baby, and that baby is in great danger of being washed away, you can empathise all you like, and you go through all the fear and the panic and the sort of the concern. You've just got to let it happen, because those animals have to learn and they have to overcome the difficulties that they're facing. Okay, they're turning back now. She's being followed by her elder daughter. They've made it back to the bank. Oh, but she really wants to get across, catch up with the rest of the herd. The problem is it's almost night, and in the darkness, there's an even greater chance of their babies being swept away. You're watching this mother elephant who's desperately trying to get her baby across the river, and your heart is just in your mouth the whole time, because it is a dangerous and unpredictable and difficult situation that she's trying to deal with. It's being swept downstream, she's having to chase it. Please get your baby out. It got darker and darker, and the calf was increasingly weak. We just didn't know if it could make it. I'm just going to drive on a bit ahead to see if by some chance we've managed to make it. Oh, here we've got some elephants. I just hope this is them. Yes, it is. Look, there's the baby. They've got through. They've done it. That is fantastic news. It's difficult to know where you're drawing the line between what you're projecting onto an animal in terms of the relationship that you're developing with it and what's actually happening in reality. We had a very long 70-day period filming lions, and I really felt they'd got to know who we were in the same way that we knew instantly who they were from 50 metres away. There was this one moment, it was sort of pretty much our last day, and the Pride male came and he was lying quite close to my car. The sun was going down and he just started to roar. And then he just walked round in front of my car and he just roared straight into my face. And I could feel my whole chest cavity reverberating with this sound. And it brought tears to my eyes. And I thought, he's welcomed me into the Pride. Isn't this wonderful? And of course, you know, I could have been completely making that up, but I do think that after that kind of period of time, they get to know you. What a fantastic end to Big Cat Diary. Having this opportunity to watch big cats, you do become completely mesmerised by them. And one of the most beautiful cats I've ever seen in my life was when I went to India to see the biggest cat of them all. What I just loved about India was this ancient relationship that people have with animals. That all the animals there, or many, many of the animals, have some kind of sort of spiritual significance. And what struck me about it was that it was exactly like the Jungle Book. You know, these incredible trees and all of the vines hanging down. And then these sort of ancient temples that were just crumbling back into dust. And in amongst all of that, tigers. Now I'm about to meet the man who's going to help me track down the elusive striped cats. He's one of the world's great tiger experts. He lives right on the edge of Ranthambore National Park. His name is Valmik Thapar. Wonderful.
Greetings.
Greetings, sir.
From Africa to the Rajasthan desert, and you think you're going to see tigers.
Fantastic. We were looking for a particular female called Machli that Valmik had been following for many years. And, you know, when you look at that jungle, it's all orange and gold, and the tiger is perfectly camouflaged. So they're actually quite hard to find. We spent days searching, visiting all of Machli's haunts and just keeping an eye and ear open for any signs.
That's Machli, finally.
That's one of
her cubs.
Oh my God. I can't believe we found her. When that animal finally just walks out of the forest in front of you, it really is totally, I mean, it takes your breath away.
Now watch. We have Machli crossing the road.
Oh my God.
Wow, look at her. Look at her. Like, this is the tigress. 2 litters.
It is like watching fire coming out of the forest. And the light catches its coat, you get this, you know, this shimmering of gold. They're quite nervous, these cubs, aren't they?
This one is very nervous. It scampers to home.
The first sightings were just mind-blowing, but it was nothing compared to what happened a few days later. We had this one moment where we were completely surrounded by tigers. They were coming out of the forest behind us and in front of us, and it was just wonderful.
Yeah, have a look.
So this is the other brother.
Here's the second one. Look, he's a little bigger, you can see. He's fuller.
He's got a stronger body.
Much stronger body.
And look at those incredibly muscled forelegs catching onto prey.
Sometimes he can be very curious and slightly aggressive to the jeep. He could snarl at us when he crosses.
He is a powerful animal.
He's going to his brother in the grass. There's another tiger coming behind us.
That's the mother of this young male. We are completely surrounded by tigers. What a magnificent moment. We were in such a tiny little vehicle and there was, absolutely no protection around us. And I couldn't help feeling a little bit vulnerable.
Isn't that amazing? One tiger in front, one tiger in the back. That's what the most tiger sightings.
This is just wonderful. But it's a funny thing with these animals, like both tigers and lions and leopards, that although they see you as sort of the car as being part of your general bulk, and therefore they leave you alone because you're much bigger than them, but they recognise you as the sort of conscious part in that. And when a big cat looks at you, they don't look at the car, they look at you straight in your eyes. And I always find that they somehow look straight into my soul. It's been wonderful to make films where people and animals have some kind of special relationship with each other. I think one of the most interesting was working with the Sami reindeer herders up in northern Norway. People who are essentially European, but they are still living a very ancient lifestyle, following the reindeer migration and living almost entirely off reindeer. The film we made was really about me going and living with the Sami and helping them out with their reindeer roundup that they do every winter. Watching how they actually managed the snow and they dealt with the reindeer and this amazing relationship they had with the animals it was very impressive. What was really interesting was to see how the reindeer used human beings to their own advantage. And they're wild animals, but they'd sort of become habituated to living with the Sami. And it was to their benefit because the Sami would keep predators away from them. It was an interesting example of two different species living off each other and benefiting off each other. There are around 85,000 Sami people, scattered across some of the coldest places on Earth. But the clans are all linked by a fiercely defended culture that bypasses national frontiers. But only 3,000 follow the ancient way of life, like Isak and his clan. Their ancestors would have lived almost exactly like this 1,000 years ago. Everything's pretty much the same. The tent, the beds, the food. It's like stepping back in time. What really impressed me about the Sami was when they use reindeer, they're not in any way wasteful. They cull the animals that are getting old or their teeth have worn down too much, and they use every single little bit of that animal. Not surprisingly, 90% of the Sami diet is reindeer. Reindeer stew, smoked reindeer, reindeer tongue, dried reindeer, and then there are the special treats.
Make the pancakes of blood pancakes.
Blood pancakes.
Very good.
Tonight, it's reindeer stew. Yummy. They even use reindeer fat in their coffee as sort of a substitute for milk. That's also something I managed not to eat, which was good. They're not wasteful people. I loved living with them. It was just, I was very, very sad to leave them when we had to go. I think the best thing about the job that I do, apart from going to see all these incredible animals, is just to go to very remote wildernesses. And one of the most far-flung was the Sinai Desert in Egypt. God, this is beautiful. Look at that. The whole reason that I went into the Sinai Desert was to learn how to be a Bedouin. And finally we're there. My training ground, Mahroum. Part of the deal of learning the Bedouin lifestyle was that if I really wanted to prove myself, then they wanted me to learn how to race a camel and enter a camel race. Hare! Hare, Shailan! Hare! But it really isn't that easy. Try another one. We must try and gallop now. Come on! Come on! Come on! Shailan! No, I don't think I did it. Damn, it's a lot faster than I thought. We're not quite there yet. Hare! Hare, Shailan! Hare! I didn't really realise what I quite got myself into until I was out there and, actually having to learn how to race a camel. And it was quite daunting. I did at times feel like I'd bitten off a bit more than I could chew. Kif, Shailan. I was quite a run. But this camel knows me too well. He is just not convinced that I'm anything to be frightened of. And he just won't go into that fourth gear. There is such an ancient relationship between the Bedouin and camels. I mean, they just know each other inside out. And that really came home to me when we actually were in the camel race itself, because the camels really enjoyed the whole experience. I had never managed to get my camel to gallop before until the race. And when we finally got up into the starting line and it was time to go, he just broke into a gallop immediately. And I just remember hearing behind my back, this kind of horde of screaming nomads coming after me. And you just have to hang on for dear life. And how I actually stayed on that camel, I don't know. You just have to wing it, actually, and hope you stay on. There is a saying that the Bedouin have, which is, never trust a camel. But I did, I trusted Shailan. He knew very well that I was totally out of my element. And I actually think he looked after me. And he is a star, complete star. The place that I've been to that is most different from here in Kenya was definitely the high Arctic. Having spent quite a lot of time filming carnivores in Africa, I did become quite obsessed with predators worldwide. And so my one sort of passionate desire was to go up into the North Pole to look for polar bears. Oh my God, this is beautiful. I feel like we're right at the end of the earth. Wow. There is a point when you sort of look out and you realise that there's absolutely nothing in between you and the absolute north but ice and polar bears. And that is a feeling where you suddenly think, my God, what a huge universe we live in, and how fantastic it is to be a tiny little speck on planet Earth. Watching this great bear coming ever closer to me, I have to admit my heart is absolutely racing. What you don't realise about the bears is that although you're hunting them, they're also hunting you. And most of the time when we came across bears, it was actually because they'd found our smell and they were following us. It started coming closer and closer, and eventually Jason, who was our guide, said to us, if anything happens, you've got to get on your skidoo and start the engine, and the sound should be enough to frighten the polar bear off.
Everyone stand by your machine ready to start.
And this polar bear came closer and closer and closer, and it was incredibly exciting. And he just stopped before he crossed that sort of invisible threshold where, you know, we suddenly had to react. And he turned and he went off. I think in any situation where you have to put a huge amount of effort into finding an animal, when you get there and you eventually see it, it really does hit you just quite how special it is. Well, then we tried to start our skidoos, and we turned the key and it just went, oh, oh. And what had happened was that it was so cold that the batteries had run down and were completely flat. So if anything had happened, we would have been in serious trouble. It's only really when you get out there into that high Arctic and you show how extreme it really is. It makes you realise how incredibly tough polar bears actually are. When you're up there with the bears and you're watching them, and you know, they are such extraordinary animals, and you do feel such respect for them and admiration for their ability to survive up in that place. And you just think, you know, it's such a tragedy that with global warming and the melting of the ice caps, we could lose polar bears in 70 years. And I suppose in a way it makes watching them all that more poignant. It's a real wake-up call, and we've all got to do something about it. People like to distance themselves from animals and say, oh, well, you know, they don't feel like we do, it's not possible, how could they, they're animals. But actually, I think if you just watch and you look, you'll see all sorts of very human-like emotions in animals. I think the most bizarre thing that I've ever seen in my life was coming across a lioness who'd adopted an oryx antelope calf. I'm heading towards Samburu Reserve in North Kenya because I've heard a strange rumour that a lioness has adopted a baby oryx. But a predator adopting its prey breaks all the rules of nature. Nothing like this has ever been seen before. This is one of the most extraordinary things I've ever seen in my life. You have a fully grown female lion and a baby oryx who are lying there side by side without the slightest care in the world. And what was so bizarre about it was that, you know, every minute you expect the lioness to leap onto the calf and eat it. And instead, she mothered it. It was her baby, as far as she was concerned. When I first actually saw them together, it was just totally unreal. I mean, it was literally like something had been plucked out of the biblical texts and sort of plonked in the middle of the African plains. It seemed like she had such conflict going on in her own head about how to deal with this calf, that sometimes she was mother, and then sometimes she was predator. But overriding everything was an enduring attachment, and they were together for 16 days. The best answer that we all came up with was that she was a young lioness. She'd lost her pride. She'd been through some kind of very traumatic experience. And as a result, something just switched in her head. And she just latched onto this oryx calf. And her brain said, baby. And we all thought, you know, either the oryx calf was going to die or the lioness was going to die because she wasn't hunting. And what none of us thought about was the most obvious, which was that there were other predators around. The calf is looking a lot weaker today. I think it's really beginning to feel the wear and tear of having no milk. Oryx calves, because they're arid zone animals, need very, very rich milk. I don't know, but I don't have a good feeling about this calf. I'm not sure if it's going to make it. The lioness relaxes in thick bush. She feels safe here, and for the first time lets the calf wander out of sight. Oh my God! A male lion has ambushed them, and it's taken the calf, and this is it. This is the end. I can't believe it. What was fascinating to watch was how she reacted, because, you know, these emotions were just running across her face, and horror and desperation and fear and you know, she was reacting exactly like a mother lion who lost her cub. And it was heartbreaking. What was extraordinary about this incident was that it so easily could have happened and nobody would have seen it. But we were there and it happened right on our doorstep. And it just made me think, you know, how many other things are going on in the animal world that we have absolutely no clue about? We are literally just scratching the surface in what we know. The natural world is full of surprises. We can't ever assume that we really know what's going on. I suppose I'm not afraid of admitting that I think that animals have emotions, and I think that they have intelligence, and it's not like ours, but it's, you know, it's very different from ours, but it is a parallel kind of intelligence. And I just hope that maybe by showing what I feel and care about an animal, and showing also just how incredibly special these animals are, that it'll make people care about them.
I do believe strongly that if you love something, then you'll go out of your way to protect it.